Welcome back, everyone. Joining us now is interior designer Ahmad AbouZanat, known for creating homes that feel effortless, connected, and beautifully curated from room to room. Ahmad, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
I know you have a big job here. You've been a judge. You've been all over the floor.
Yeah.
And we first met a couple of years ago at a Kips Bay show house.
At a Kips Bay show house. I believe we met in Dallas the first time.
Yes.
I did the show house, and then we saw each other again in New York.
And you've been doing more show houses and judging. Before we get into this topic, I would love to know what your thoughts have been so far on the show and what you've been seeing and judging.
So it's always exciting to be back at this show because you're really seeing it all at once. It's it's massive ground, so it's good to see and learn the new technology with the day-to-day appliances that we take for granted. Some of the stuff that we judged also was smaller products like marble sealer won 2 awards. When it went against something that's a big appliance, right? And I think that speaks a lot to the practicality and like the designers looking for things that are functional and makes our lives and our clients' lives easy because our lives, we need to make that easy, during the design process. So it's just been exciting that way, and I'm always happy to be back. Yeah.
And then does this sort of get your brain flowing in different ways when you think about technology that you can be bringing into the home?
Absolutely, yeah. Our clients are starting, we work obviously with the homeowners and we do some commercial projects, but also the clients, there are the younger generation, right? So they're more in tune with technology.
Sure.
And I don't like technology. It takes me a lot of effort to learn it, but I kind of have to, right? So it's one of those things where here you're getting the quick pitch, you're seeing the product in action sometimes. The Best of Show award went to KitchenAid double oven with a camera in it that basically it scans what food you put in and it does everything on its own. You don't even have to push a start button. So I'm like, I can be a good cook basically.
Right, you're not going to burn a roast chicken.
100%.
Your smoke detector's not going to be going off. That's so funny. Well, it's really exciting to see all of the technology that's emerging. But what we're going to talk about is creating a cohesive story from room to room.
Yes.
We have a bunch of photos that we're going to share. But in a couple of sentences, how do you create a cohesive story through a house?
I'm someone who likes to work a lot with texture over patterns, so to me, I find it very important that whatever textured material we're using, whether it's wallpaper or fabric or wood, hard surfaces, right, that it carries over from one space to another space, but that also allows me to have sometimes more flexibility at creating more of a unique look for each room, a different colorway. But then the wood is continuous and it's flowing from one space to another. Or maybe it's the brass hardware detail that we're using and that ties up the space altogether.
So there basically needs to be a through line of something that connects different rooms.
Yes. I mean, usually flooring is a great one, but I like also the subtle details because it's one of those things that, in my opinion, you see it, you don't really pay attention to it, but it's kind of like it just gets stuck in your mind. And when you see it again and again, it just, it reads as a good flow from one space to another.
So I think we mentioned that we met at a show house. Lily, can we pull up the Kips Bay pictures? I think, was that 2023 that you did that?
I did New York in 23, yes.
Okay,
yes,
all right.
No, we did a bathroom for New York.
And I think speaking of bathroom, that's not a space that should be forgotten. I mean, look what you've done here. This is beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we actually talked about this a bit on the panel today that I was on. I grew up at my grandma's home in the mountains in Lebanon.
Wow.
So, when I was tasked to do a bathroom in New York, it was an old mansion, as you remember, on the Upper West Side. And it had this beautiful architecture. So I wanted to respect that. And at the same time, I kind of wanted to pull some cues from my earlier days as a child, right? Like we had shutter windows. I remember my grandma leaving things on the sill, or, she had land, so she would bring, wildflowers every now and then. So it's,
So this is exactly what you've done here. You've kind of harkened back to your childhood.
Yeah.
And then how did you choose the color palette?
So the architecture of the house had actually those colors on the exterior, and I wanted to, again, respect that, and I wanted to design a bathroom that people will see and think that it belongs to the house, right?
Yep.
So, and again, I'm more of a modern minimalist, but I also layer things. Mm-hmm. So I can't call myself a minimalist, but my spaces are usually 2 main elements and then as you see, it's like tone on tone on tone and the same stuff, but it's layered, right? There's the
Right.
colors and there's textures and there's the the greenery.
So like with a room like this, where do you start? You start with the tile, or you have an idea for color?
It actually started with the idea of splitting the space in two. So like one of the photos, it was showing that the space was kind of like divided into two. And by just making that one decision, I was like, it can be tile or color, or it can be the same thing, right? Like, both combined. And that's what we did. We gave what I like to call the functional side of the bathroom, kind of like the gray, light gray tones, which is the sink and the toilet. And where the tub is, we gave it the warmer feel by the window, more kind of like rustic and romantic, because that's the place you sit in and kind of like unwind and relax for a while.
It's almost like it has dual personalities in the same small space.
I've had people like walk in and be like, it's a great use of small space because you're creating two visuals in one.
Right.
But then people are joking like, what happens if I step into this one? Like, does my mood change?
Maybe.
And that's the idea, is when you sit in a tub, it's a different mood than, when you're using the restroom.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we're talking about how color and texture can change a space. How do you choose the right palette to connect the rooms?
That's. I feel like that's kind of like a client intake or research, or like what do they love, right? I think if you look at my work, there's a common thread that I, again, use texture over pattern. I try to keep things edited if you want, but almost none of the projects look the same. So my clients don't come to me because I do a certain style. I actually bring their personality, and I feel like that's just like an ongoing process of finding out who they are, what they like. I ask things like, like tell me your favorite article of clothing, like what color it is. And it's not like the one you go to work with, the one you vacation and party with.
It's the one you wear every day.
And then they're like, oh, well, yellow, but like I don't want a yellow living room. But then I find ways to incorporate hints of yellow because I know that brings them joy in a way.
So wait, is this a project that you finished up?
This is the Hampton designer show house that I did this summer. It was the great room. And this actually got the cover of a magazine, and I'm very happy because there was no client involved. So this was all
So here
me.
you're not listening, as we were just talking about, we weren't listening to a client for this.
Yes.
You were listening to yourself and what you wanted to do. And what did you want to do in this room?
So I actually came up with a scenario, right? It's a show house. You want to come up with a story, and it was in the Hamptons, and we had a photo of this young, beautiful lady with her dog. And we made this room about their bond, and that, that picture was taken at her grandparents' home. And this is her modern version of it. And, she's bringing all these natural elements and colors and soft textures because her dog is getting old. We came up with a whole story around one photo, and just, but again, the idea was to keep it was a big space, it was completely open. Tone on tone helped basically create a cohesive room that was very rich and layered. And I love, love, love accessories and finding objects. So that's my thing. It's like, I'll spend X amount of time for a sofa, but I can spend 10 times more just to find the small object that's going to stand out.
The personal objects.
Because I think these are the items that you feel like somebody was buying, like was traveling and bought it on their travels, right? Like you go around and you're like, oh, you find this one thing here and one thing there, and that makes a personality for your home.
Think you can have too many accessories?
No, never.
Never?
Never.
Are you a more is more kind of guy?
Like I said, I do edit down, but I am here's a confession for you.
Tell me.
I am a ceramic hoarder. I buy ceramics like crazy because I love them.
Decorative, or do you use them?
So I swap them where I live, right?
Okay.
Like I have a whole closet full of ceramics, and I just swap them every now and then because there's something about the handmade tactile aspect of it, and it's unique, right? So
one of a kind.
And one of a kind, and yeah.
Okay, let's talk about furniture scale and how it can make or break a space. How do you get it right?
I feel like through experience, I've definitely learned to do it better over the years, and I think for me it's harder to convince the clients sometimes with a certain scale, right? We do 3Ds during the process, but it's an image, they don't really feel it.
Right.
I learned the trick from a client of a previous firm that I worked with, where she literally taped everything and started walking around. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, oh my God, you have a lot of time on your hands, right?
You're taping the whole.
You're like, you have the construction crew blue tape the floor instead of building because you wanted to walk between the bed and the night, like the dresser, and see if you have enough space. Now I get it.
and now it works, and now you do it.
Now I'm like, this is how big your coffee table is, because sit down and pretend you're putting something on it, and it's all of a sudden it clicks for them, right? It's like, makes sense.
So I know you had a project in downtown Manhattan. Lily,
Yeah.
can we pull those photos up? Because I'd love to talk about those. I think that has to do a bit with scale.
Yes, because the space wasn't big, and we had this giant concrete column in the room, and it was an open living room, dining, and a kitchen where, honestly, we could have fit either that like a good-sized living room or a good-sized dining, but not both. And they really insisted on that.
Making your life a little challenging.
Of course, right? And then the other challenge on top of it was they didn't want to let go of their sofa, which was a sectional, and it would have been the opposite orientation to what I would choose. But that's the thing with working with clients, that sometimes you have these restrictions, right? So that chair we're seeing on the screen right now, when we got it first, that's from Casina, the client kept saying it's too small, the console behind it is big, like it's a bit higher. And I kept saying, trust me, it's the right scale for the room. You're gonna sit, watch TV. You don't want to see a corner of a chair. You know, he called me about a year later saying, I just want to point out that I'm so happy with that chair, and I'm glad you convinced me not to go larger.
You were right.
I'm like, yeah, and I love saying that. I'm like, yes, I was right.
Yes,
glad
thank
you
me.
listened. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So it takes time to build that confidence, you know, and trust with the client, you know,
Sure.
because a lot of them, we work with them for the first time.
Yeah.
And we're
But
using
hopefully it's a long-term partnership, and then they trust you, and then you work together again.
It is, yeah. And we're working with people's money, even if they have a lot of it. Once you're like dealing with people's money, they're sensitive about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Another place where you thrive is not just the designing of a home, but also designing tablescapes. And
Yes.
we saw each other last year at the Lenox Hill event.
Yes.
Tell us about the beautiful table that you
Yes.
designed and the inspiration behind it.
So last year the theme was La Dolce Vita,
Yes.
right? So it was an Italian theme, and I happened to be in Perugia in Italy like about a year before, and I remember I walked into, we were staying at this hotel, and then there was this small church that was part of the hotel, and I remember walking in and they were drying flowers upside down.
Oh, wow.
And the setting was just amazing. You have like these raw stone walls, and then, you know, the color of the flowers and everything. So when I saw the theme for this, I actually had to scramble through my phone and find that picture. And I decided that's going to be the theme behind my table. I'm just going to go flowers upside down, because
Saw it first in Italy.
right, there's that. And then I thought also it will stand out because I was part of it the year before, and we always start from the bottom to the top with the floral arrangement. So I was like, how can I make this stand out in a way that also is tasteful, relates to the theme? You know, that project, that event also, the small ceramic cups, I was on a trip in Poland, and I stopped by the street market, and it was a flea market, and then I find this young girl who does ceramics, and I start chatting with her, and I was like, this is such a great gift for the guests who are going to be on the table. And I asked, and again, she does it as a hobby, so the price point was also very surprisingly good, that I was like, well, I need 20 of these. And
She had 20?
She had 13 on display, and she had to call her sister. And it was the nicest thing to experience, where she's like, I may have some back at the house. And like she called her sister, who came back. You know, it was a whole thing, and people loved them.
But what a great story, and
Yes,
it's a
and I kept
unique
the rest.
piece.
Because I am a hoarder.
One for the guest, one for you.
100%.
Are you constantly looking for treasures when you travel? And where do you like to travel to find objects?
I'm guilty of going to Italy a lot.
Okay.
Like, it's a bit unhealthy how
And the
much.
flea markets, or do you like shopping stores?
I prefer flea markets. I'm not a planner. I just go, and we're fortunate that New York to Rome or Milan is an easy flight. You get there in the morning. But then I take the train and try to visit different parts of the country, and I'm not someone who wants to go do a lot of things. I just want to see how people live in different countries. So I walk around. I take the metro, 7 stops, and I walk back to my hotel. And that's how I stumble into things, right? I see this small shop here, or this cafe that I sit down, and all of a sudden they have a wall where, they're displaying someone's work. I go to flea markets a lot because, again, it tells a story. It tells you what people have, and without being too nosy, but that's what we do for a living.
Right.
Right?
And the importance of story is so integral to home.
Also, it's interesting to see what people are letting go of.
Oh.
Why is it being sold, right? There's always something.
But then I
behind
think
it.
what's so nice about shopping at a flea market and shopping secondhand is that something that was once in somebody else's home is now receiving a new life in your home, and in a different way, and it just continues
100%. 100%. And I've been asked a lot about sustainability in design, right? And I keep saying it's not about just buying a product that's made out of a sustainable surface. It's giving another product, new life. It's basically working with companies also that is, like, for example, be certified because they have certain ethos, right? It's beyond just buying something that has a sticker that says recyclable on, and giving something a second life is a big one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I've found things that are in our current home that I have found on the street.
Yeah.
Like it was somebody else's trash.
Well,
it's a
New
signed
York.
It's a signed piece of art.
Yes.
It's this beautiful canvas, and it's a watermelon.
Okay.
And it had no frame.
Yeah.
But it's signed, and I framed it, and now it's in our dining room.
There you
so
go.
What is the phrase? One person's trash is another person's treasure.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Good question. So I'm starting to develop some product, which I'm really excited about. I probably will start, not probably will, I am actually starting on smaller product in terms of accessories, just because I would love to partner up with brands at some point, but I also want to kind of do it independently first, just so I see without restrictions, what would I do? And it is an investment, so it's taking time. But I'm starting with some product, and if you go to the next Lennox Hill, you might see some of it.
Okay, I'll be there.
Yeah, because I'm also part of that show this year. And then, again, we have some exciting projects. The Hampton's show house, I met a client there, and, we're working on this beautiful beach house, and just trying to keep going. And now I'm between New York and Austin, so we also started getting work in Austin, Texas. So
I'm so excited for all your success. I remember meeting you kind of in the early days at Kips Bay, and I'm thrilled and excited for you and all that's ahead.
Thank you so much.
Ahmad,
thank you for always providing a platform as well.
Of course. Well, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you.